Thank you so much for the invitation, Danke. All right, let's just get going here. The danger within. So I like to talk about IBMi security as being like a volcano. Now, why am I showing a volcano that is erupting? I'm showing this because there are always warning signs that a volcano is going to erupt. It may be a surprise at the actual time that it's going to erupt, but there are warning signs ahead of time. There may be earthquakes, or there may be gases that are given off, or the molten lava starts to build. There's always warning signs. And that's the same way with IBMi security. There are a lot of organizations, unfortunately, that ignore the warning signs of IBM security about to erupt. And so I want to give you some of those warning signs and the things that we need to be aware of and that we need to stop ignoring so that when our IBMi security does erupt at some point, we are prepared. All right, why does this matter? Why do we need to be prepared and why do we need to stop ignoring IBMi security? Well, the data on our system is valuable. It is valuable to each one of your organizations. It means money, it means euros. If we if it didn't mean euros, then we wouldn't be running IBMi. So one of the things that organizations need to do, and we as IBMi professionals, we need to help our organizations understand the value of the data running on IBMi. And many times we've already done that in the context of disaster recovery, but we've never done that in the context of security. We know what it costs the organization if the system is absolutely down, but we don't know or have not expressed to the organization what the cost to the organization is if our data isn't available or if it's not accurate or if it's been stolen. So, for example, if our system gets infected with ransomware, what is one of the things that ransomware does? It typically exfiltrates or downloads the data before it encrypts it. And sometimes malware or ransomware doesn't even bother to encrypt the data. It will just download the data. So if the bad actors understand the value of the data to your organization, why don't we? And if we did, I believe we would take more action to secure our system. All right, so let's start looking at some of the things that we need to be aware of and that are cautionary that we need to get rid of. One of the things is that we need to get rid of those default and weak passwords. This is a problem that has been around for a long time. You would think that we would have solved this problem by now, but I still keep seeing systems with the password that's the same as the user profile name. Now, one of the things that IBM has done to help us reduce this issue, and I have to say, the last two releases, IBM i 7.5 and 7.6, has done a lot to help us reduce exposures. So IBM is doing their part. Now we need to do ours. One of the things that IBM did in 7.5 is that when we create a new user profile, the default for the password no longer defaults to be the password as the same as the user profile name. Yay! This is a great enhancement, so that's a great thing. But you can still override that and make the password the same as the user profile name. So what do you need to do? IBM has provided a lot of SQL services. So I want to show you the SQL services that are available to find the security issues on your system. So I am using, in this case, the user underscore info IBMi service view, and it will help us see all of those profiles with a default password. Now, yes, there's the analyze default password command and report, but I prefer to use this view because it will let me customize and bring in more information to help me assess the risk of having a profile with a default password and which ones to look at or fix first. So I've brought in the profiles and special authorities setting, their group profiles, supplemental, and so forth. So this is a much more complete way to analyze the risk of the profiles that have default passwords on the system. Which one am I going to fix first? This one that has all object. Also, we can prevent weak passwords from occurring. So I'm showing a view from Navigator for I of the password level system value. There are now 5 password levels. There is password level 0 through password level 4. 4 came in IBM 7.6. There and so we can have 3 of these password levels, 2, 3, and 4, that allow us to define a long password or what's called a passphrase. The longer the password, the harder it is for a bad actor to guess it or do a dictionary attack against the system. This allows users to type in a sentence. The passphrase allows special characters, any special characters. If you can type it, it can be your password. So there can be spaces, punctuation, characters. So you can literally type in a sentence, which most end users can remember a longer sentence than a very cryptic short password. So we can use a password level on our systems, and we can use the password composition with the system value called password rules, which allows us to define more rules that match our network rules. It also allows us to specify if you are displaying this in Navigator for I, if you scroll down to the end of this value, you can see that you can restrict the strong passwords even when a user creates a user profile or changes a user profile. So this will get rid of those weak passwords. You can then detect if a profile has been set with a weak password via create and change user profile. So if you have auditing enabled, we can use the CP or the change to user profile audit journal helper function, and we can know if a profile has been set with a weak password and get that corrected. So there are ways to correct those weak passwords. Now, the next level of caution is the security level the systems are running at. This, again, it seems to be something that I have been talking about for many years. And you're right, I have. But unfortunately, again, there are many systems that are still running at security level 20 and level 30. Yikes! This is not a good setting. So this is one of those warning signs. We can get off these systems. So the problem with security level 20 is that all users by default, when they're created, are created with all object special authority as well as save sys special authority. And of course, then level 30 makes it so that they don't have all object anymore, but they can use interfaces that end users should not be able to use. They can directly call operating system programs, or your developers can create a program and point a pointer directly at your database files and manipulate those database files. You can also use a job description that names a very powerful profile, and they only need authority to the job description, not the user profile named in it. So there are a lot of weaknesses at level 30, but it is very easy to get off level 30. All you have to do is turn on auditing, look for these specific audit journal entry types, make sure there aren't any, or correct the issues if there are, and move up IPL to level 40. It has been many, many, many years since I have seen a system that cannot move to level 40. There may be some issues to resolve, but those are easily resolved. So please get your system to at least level 40. Now, I think the biggest issue that still remains an issue that I have been talking about for many years is the idea that menu security or putting your end users in a menu environment is all that you need to do for IBM-i security. So I think people still are back in the day. And IBM sometimes puts out marketing material that says IBM is secure. IBM is secureable. We need to use the features IBM gives us to secure our systems. And one of them is to go beyond menu security and realize that end users can do more than you might think that they can do. So you need to take some action. So for this, I have created a little demo I just want to show you right now. So I have a system that I have signed on to. I'm going to display a profile of a test profile. And you can see it is a basic profile. It has no special authorities. It has no groups. And most importantly, it is limited capability, yes. So one would think that it cannot enter any commands. So I'm going to sign on with that user profile and show you that from a menu environment, I cannot run any commands. So I'm trying to run the display user profile for my own profile. It's not allowed. If we look in the help text, it explains that this user is a limited user and cannot run commands. All right, fine. So one would think that I can't run commands. But that's not actually the case. So I've launched ACS and I've launched Run SQL scripts. And what I'm doing now is inserting something from examples. So IBM has provided us with many examples of how you use all the IBM-i services. And in 7.6, they've added, in fact, the latest release of ACS, they've added some SQL that gives us examples of how to see if our databases are vulnerable. And so I've just run one of those examples, and now I have a list of libraries that contain files that I could update. Now remember, I have no groups, I don't have any special authorities, I certainly don't have all object, but now I've just displayed a list of all of the files that I could go after and exploit. I could just read them, but I could also update them. Okay, so that's just one way I could exploit the system. Now what I'm going to do is see which user profiles I have access to. Again, I'm not an all object user, so I will see the profiles that I'm authorized to. Oh, look, there is a user profile that is listed, not just my own, but there's another one. So I'm going to scroll over and see some details. It's disabled. Okay. It doesn't even have a password, so you might think I can't exploit this, but oof, it has all special authorities. Okay. That means I have this user profile as a tool that I can exploit. All right, so what am I going to do? Well, guess what? I actually can run a command, a seal command from Run SQL scripts. So IBM has made it very easy. So I'm going to run the submit job command. I prompt that. Oh, and then I can prompt the command that I'm going to run via submit job. So I'm going to create a user profile. All right, so let's see. I don't need a password there. I'm going to set it to a user class of SecOffers so that I default to have all the special authorities with this profile. Yeah. And let's see, Carol's powerful profile. All right, click OK. And now I need to, this is how I'm going to exploit or use that profile that I have authority to, but is more powerful than my own. So I'm going to run this job, I'm going to submit this job as that profile where their public authority was not set to exclude. So I'll just run this SQL statement. Yes, and it ran successfully. So now I know what the password is because I set it. So I'm going to go back to that green screen. And I'm going to show that as an end user, I have created a profile called CJW Power. I'm signing on with it. And now it can run any command. Yep. Work user profile. I have access to every profile in the system as well as every library on the system. And now I have that at my fingertips. So that's the easy way to exploit user profiles that are not public exclude on the system. Kisco Systems does penetration testing as well as some other organizations, vendors. And one of my favorite tests to run is a test just like this to see which profiles aren't public exclude and show our clients what we can do with it. All right, so several things need to happen here. How are we going to fix this vulnerability? One of the things is special authorities. Obviously, we need to have profiles and be aware of profiles with special authorities. So again, we need to list those out. And so again, through Run SQL scripts, I can display all of the profiles that have special authorities. In this case, I'm looking very specifically for all object. And also I am making sure that the profile is listed, whether that all object is coming from the profile itself or one of the group profiles. All you have to do to list the other special authorities for those analysis is to switch out the all object for things like save sys, start audit, etc. All right, now you may say, but Carol, my end users do not know how to run SQL. Okay, well, as I showed in the demo, all you have to do is launch ACS, launch Run SQL scripts, and IBM has provided the SQL for us. And so that's available in ACS 1.1.9.9. And they have included some more SQL because IBM itself is trying to raise awareness for the vulnerabilities of the database. Scott Forsty is the one that has provided these SQL examples. His point is, why have a world-class database if it's not secure? So he's trying to provide ways for you to find out whether your database is secure or not. So these are all of the new services that have been provided in the latest release of ACS. But you might say, well, still, I'm going to block my end users from being able to access those examples. Okay, fine. But you know what? All we have to do is look online. So, what I want you to understand is that the excuse, which I have heard for many years, that my end users don't know how to do this is not a valid excuse anymore. A simple Google search showed exactly how to list out all of the libraries on the system. And then it does a very kind click here and I can copy it to my clipboard. Then all I have to do is look at it in an AI overview and I get even more. What security vulnerabilities does um, uh, IBMi have? So this is what is shown via the Google AI. This is and looking at it in AI mode. Interestingly enough, this view will show us the CVEs that are also affect IBMi. Interesting. So, what is a bad actor going to do if they want to attack IBMi? And there are bad actors that attack IBMi. Don't think that IBMi is blinded to the bad actors. There are bad actors that go after IBMi. So, what are they going to do if they discover an IBMi in your organization or that is out on the web unprotected? They will go through the list of CVEs and see if they can exploit your IBMi via an unpatched system. Microsoft Copilot produces slightly different information, but you get my point. The ways that IBMi is vulnerable are very well documented, so we can't hide anymore. Okay, so let's go back to the example. User profiles that are not exclude. What are the fix? You list them out. Basically, what you want to do is list out all of the user profiles that are not exclude. That's very simple to do. Then, how do you know if they, quote, need to be exclude? What if somebody is using that user profile legitimately for a business case? So what you want to do in that case is turn on the job basic action auditing on that user profile and then review the JS audit journal entries. That will tell you what jobs have been started using that user profile. And that will tell you if anything is going to break, setting the public back to exclude. When I work with my clients, I work very hard to make sure we approach security and approach fixing the vulnerabilities in a way that causes minimal downtime or doesn't break something. So I'm trying to give you ways that you can discover what is wrong or what the vulnerabilities are, and then go about fixing them without breaking something. All right. What's the fix for menu security? First, the realization that menu security is not sufficient. So there are many ways to access data outside of a menu. That first, we have to have that mindset. Then we have to determine who should be accessing, be allowed to access that data through things like SQL, FTP, SSH, and more. Don't forget that the system can be accessed via the IFS, not just through libraries, and then put together a project to address the data authority and or an exit point solution from one of the vendors so that you can allow only those users that need access. It's called least privilege access and deny by default. Also, you can go a long ways to limit what features your end users can use of ACS and other interfaces that use those servers. So you can do that through function usage as well as limited installs of ACS. Now, the other thing that I talked about was how easy it is to find what vulnerabilities exist on IBMi, as well as what well-known vulnerabilities have been documented through a CVE, a Common Vulnerability Evaluation Number. You can go to the website that manages that, search just for IBMi, and get the list. So that's how a bad actor might exploit or go after a system where they haven't been patched. So IBM has provided us with several ways to find out if our systems are current. One of them is to find out if our group PTFs are current. And so there's SQL that will allow us to find whether the current group PTFs are current. What this does is takes your current system settings for PTFs, it compares that, it does a phone home to IBM, brings that back and compares what the current PTF group PTFs are to what is actually on the system. So you can know if an update it needs to be applied. They've also provided us with a way to determine if we have a defective PTF on the system that has not been patched. So what you want is when you run this SQL, you want an empty list. That is a good thing. That means that if you had any defective PTFs, they have been resolved. The last one is that they will tell us if our firmware is current. And so there's the SQL for the firmware currency. Now, one of the other things that I think is a big vulnerability to IBM is that we are not sending our IBM information to our SIMs. So especially medium to larger organizations have a SIM or a log aggregator where you get an overall view of what's going on across the entire organization. And I like to describe this as having a view into the system where it's like a jigsaw puzzle. If you're not sending your IBMi data to your SIM, it's like a jigsaw puzzle with a hole in the middle. What does the rest of that puzzle look like? Why don't you imagine that for just a minute? What does your mind think that puzzle looks like? Okay, you're imagining that, but is it reality? No, I bet it didn't look like that. So when you are not sending your IBMi information, you can only imagine what it looks like when you're looking across and trying to have a whole view of your organization. Wouldn't you rather have the whole picture? So that's what you need to do. You need to start sending your IBMi information to your SIM so that across your entire organization, you have the whole picture. So the fix, send information to your IBMi. There are things that you can do on your IBMi system that will be a warning sign of a bad actor coming through. Things like attempts to sign on with root or admin. We do not typically in the IBMi or world have user profiles called root or admin. So if you see somebody trying to sign on with that, that is a warning that something might be going on your system. Or things like jobs started with an external IP address. That's an indication that something has gone wrong with your firewall. I had a client one time, I had to do they called me in to see if I could detect any kind of bad activity on their IBMi because somebody had accidentally changed their firewall settings. It was not on purpose, but they accidentally set the firewall to allow access from the entire internet. Whew, that was bad. They caught it after about 6 hours. And thankfully, I found no activity on their IBMi. But during that time, anybody from the outside could have come in and accessed their IBMi. So I looked for external IP addresses and jobs that had started in that way. Also, you probably all have certain files on your system that are critical, and there may be certain fields in those database files that shouldn't be changing or should only be changed under certain processes. You can have a database monitor that will allow you to find those changes to those certain fields in certain files. Don't you want to be alerted when that happens so that you can make sure that it has been done with the proper process? The next thing that we have to be aware of, and that is a caution to us, is artificial intelligence. Yes, we must acknowledge that it's here. We can't say, oh, when artificial intelligence or AI comes, then I'll think about this. Nope, it's here. And it is being used within your organization. So one of the things we have to think about, data when it goes into a large language model cannot be unlearned. So who is using AI in your organization right now? We'll talk about some places where it might be used, but I will guarantee you that at least your developers have been playing around with AI. If not in a formal way, then in an informal way and on their own time. You can read various studies about this, but there are studies that show that many of the breaches that have occurred or information that has been leaked has come from developers playing around and putting in corporate information into publicly available large language models like ChatGPT, Grok, you name it. Uh, you name your Perplexity, name your favorite chat box. So the problem is data can't be unlearned. So we need to get our use of AI under control. We can't limit it. We can't say, no, you can't use it, because that's not realistic. So we need to make sure how our developers are using it and what data they're using it on. So is it employee data? Is it client data? Is it PII and databases, old data that would make no sense to being analyzed and so forth? The other thing that we all need to be aware of are the laws and regulations that your organization must comply with. The EU has some pretty strict AI regulations, and they are the first. I have to congratulate you on that. But are your developers aware of these laws and regulations so that they don't, by accident, make your organization be out of compliance with those laws and regulations? It's rare that your developers would do this on purpose, but they just might not be aware of what their actions are doing. So what you need to do is have clear policies and procedures so that your developers can use AI, but use it in a responsible way against the data that makes the most sense for your organization and does not violate any law or regulation. Then you also have to make sure that the security is in place so that the data is not able to be modified in such a way that would cause bias or some type of um, output that you are certainly don't want because it's not pure data. Now, the other place that a lot of organizations are finding or not finding or aren't aware of is this thing called shadow AI. So, shadow AI is really the use of AI outside of the knowledge of IT. Um, you might have heard of the term shadow IT, where organizations will have departments that spin up an application because outside of the knowledge of IT, because IT can consume it, but this one group, maybe it's finance, maybe it's HR, they want this one application. And so they just download it and put it on their own servers. And it's outside of the knowledge of IT. So you don't know to back it up. You don't know to secure it and so forth. That's now happening with shadow AI. It may be purposeful, like organizations are, or a department is purposefully getting an application that they know has AI capabilities and they want to see what it does. They want to play around with it. They want to use it within their department. Sometimes they don't even know that they're doing it, however. There are some applications that have integrated AI into their applications and they don't make good, they don't promote it very well that they're using AI. So there may be AI in use and you don't even know it, and your departments may not know it. But we have to know that shadow AI is out there. So again, what we have to do is acknowledge that AI is there. It is going to be available. It is in use by at least your developers, if not more. So the Ponemon Institute, IBM will partner with an organization called the Ponemon Institute and do a cost of a data breach, and they do this every year. The latest document is out for 2025, and they focused on AI this year. So the cost of organizations ignoring security in AI is reaching, and this is US dollars, $4.44 million, which is about 4 million euros, roughly. Then when the additional cost to the organization, when the breach is attributed to shadow AI, so AI in use outside of the knowledge of IT, it increases by about €500,000. And when the analysis was done of the breach, again, when the breach was attributed to AI, 97% of the organizations with those breaches said that they didn't have any proper access controls or security controls in with AI. What happens a lot through the years that I've been doing security, a lot of times security is the last thing considered by a project. I've had countless clients where, as a security team that I've been working with, has been working with development, and we try to get in at the beginning of the project so that they design security into the project. And a lot of times they say, no, we don't have time for security, or we'll think it's of security at the end. That is too late. So what I would encourage you to do is to try to not be too late with security when it comes to AI. Start integrating those best practices for security now when it comes to AI. So you're not trying to fit in security after the fact and after a breach has occurred or after your data is out in the public domain. And this is the source of this information, Ponemon Institute. All right, part of AI and part of the talk that you'll hear right now is this thing called agentic AI. And that's where the agents talk to one another. And they're really trying to be a brain for an actual person and take out the very boring pieces of a person's job and automate aspects of a person's job. So one of the things that these different agents will do is to talk to one another. And again, they talk to one another so that you can automate these various processes. But if you look at the way that some of the proposals are for agentic AI, they're proposing that agents talk across your entire organization. So that might be a cool thing and it might enable a lot of things. But again, from a security perspective, does HR really need to have direct access to IT? And, does IT need to have direct access to HR? Not so sure about that. So the real question is, do all agents really need to talk to one another? So if we think about architecting how our agents are going to talk to one another, we need to think about it from a security perspective. And again, this is where I encourage you to start thinking about security now and get out ahead of this. So let's architect our agents so that it makes sense which agents talk to one another, and not just spread it out across our entire organization, because that's the easy thing to do. So let's really architect which agents talk to one another. And also, let's architect the privilege or the capabilities that these agents have. It's going to be the easiest, and your developers are going to say, but I need all power so I can do whatever this agent that I'm talking to wants me to do. If I receive a request, I have to have the authority to do it. Do we really want an automated process that is supposed to be learning new things and acquiring new skills to have all power on our IBMi? No, we do not. Or at least I would encourage you not to want that power. So let's start thinking before it's rolling out on our IBMIs. Let's think about how those agents, because they're agents, that means they have a user profile associated with them. Nothing can run on IBMi without a user profile. So how are you going to create that user profile that your agent will run? How are you going to detect inappropriate behavior that those agents, as they learn over time, might start doing? Not maybe not even maliciously, but just over time, maybe they start doing things you don't want them to do. Agentic AI, especially architected incorrectly, is making more sophisticated social engineering attacks. Throughout this, I'm giving you some links, and I will forward the handouts that you can click on these links and get more information. And there's this thing called vibe hacking. So you might have heard of vibe coding. AI has created this thing so that people that don't even know how to code can just start coding. So it's a vibe coding. Now there's something called vibe hacking, where people without any programming or hacking skills can start to attack people. So again, there's an article that talks about that. The good news front, if we use the proper tooling, there are tools that will help us. The security world in general is embracing AI and trying to make the security tools that protect our systems using AI will help them detect them quicker. Here's some resources, again, some video resources that you can use to become more aware of how AI is affecting security. And then social engineering is a big issue. Help desk, we've probably heard of help desk re-enabling profiles that shouldn't be enabled. The thing that we have to educate our end users on is often if we are receiving a text or a phone call or an email, social engineering tends to come with a sense of urgency, or something requesting immediate action. And that should be a red flag to the recipient, the person receiving that something's off. Deep fakes are making social engineering much harder to recognize, and malware has been started to be inserted into AI summaries, and there's an article on that. So we have to be aware that AI really comes with some security issues. So again, IBM has helped us start identifying inactive profiles. We don't want to have social engineering occur such that our help desk re-enables profiles that shouldn't be enabled. We should be getting our inactive profiles off the system. Here's one way to do that, or to identify them. We can disable them with SQL as well. So here's an example of that. And then MFA, while not perfect, will help prevent a lot of social engineering attacks. The good news is that IBMi has fully integrated MFA into IBMi 7.6. So IBMi Navigator for I is the easiest way to configure that. And MFA is available in previous release from various vendors. The biggest issue and the thing that can help us the most is educating our end users about the current attacks. We cannot just talk about security when the first person is first hired. We must constantly educate our employees about being cautious on clicking links, about not responding to texts. I get phishing texts on my phone probably at least once a month, if not more often. I get them in my email. I get them in my personal email. Our IT teams need to be aware that prior to holidays is a prime time that bad actors will start to come after our systems because we are not paying as much attention. Our staffing is down, so education is key. What can we do? We need to move forward. We can't just stay in place. So whether you are running up the stairs, deciding that we need to take action, or you're taking just tiny baby steps, anything that you do to secure your system is better today than it was yesterday. So I encourage you, take some step. We have to start somewhere. There's integrated tools into IBMi to get an idea of what the condition of your system is. Use the SQL examples or get some help. But what we can't do is just wait for our IBMi to erupt.